Can you please share with us, if you can, what are the constraints you've observed over the decades?
When you look at successive leadership in Nigeria or in African continent, in fact, the greatest problem they have has been the followership.
The followership. And from that, I extrapolated that what the society, Nigerian society needs right now is to begin to focus attention away from the leaders as much as possible.
But on that 5.
And focus it on that critical 5%, top 5%. Because you've also been a major player in the media industry. These days, a lot of public broadcasters, how would you assess their role and performance? Would you give it to them?
No. It says public service broadcasting had to be a public service.
Okay.
Public convenience, public interest. They have to ask themselves, and we can ask that question, are they serving public interest? Because government interest is not necessarily public interest.
It's not.
And that is because the concept of ownership of public broadcasting in this country is wrong. Governments are not owners.
Yes.
They are trustees.
They are trustees.
The people are the owners in 2 ways. First, they're going to use a spectrum, either as license or channel or frequency. Is the spectrum that belongs to all of us as Nigerians. We all own it.
Yeah.
It is not owned by a government. It is not owned by any rich man. We all, poor, rich, 205 million of us, we own it. Secondly, when you set it up, unlike here, you bought your own camera. Government uses the taxes of the people to buy the camera, transmitter and all. So in 2 ways, the public broadcasting stations are owned by the people. Now the government does a trustee. Now the government converts public service to government service. Public interest to government interest. And unfortunately, the professionals give up. I have found that most public broadcasters are not happy with the situation in which they find themselves. But then they have to be led, either by the chairman or the general manager.
Leadership again.
They have to be led.
Still comes back to leadership.
It comes to leadership. I was GM in Ibadan, and I was invited by the military governor, who told me he had a signal from Dodambara that said that all media houses must submit their news bulletins to the military governor's office for approval before he did the news or casting the news. And he showed me the signal. And I smiled. I said, "What are you smiling?" I said, "There is only one way you can get it done in that station." He said, "Which way? You first have to sack me. But so long as I remain there, it will not happen." He said, "Yeah, why will it not happen?" I said, "You are an expert in handling guns. I won't tell you how to handle a machine gun. So you can't tell me how to manage a news bulletin." So he looked at me. He said, "I trust you. Just go." When we were doing the television service for your state, Bolagi was governor, and he told me that we libeled him. And I said, "If we have libeled, you go to court."
And he appointed you?
Yes. And he went to court.
Oh, the governor, sitting governor, took a state broadcast station to court.
That's what is now called BCS TV.
No, I'm not getting this. Chief Bolage was governor of your state. He alleged the state television station of libeling him.
Yes.
And you, as the leader of that television station at that time, asked him to go to court.
Yes.
And he went to court.
He went to court. And I think after 1 or 2 hearings, he asked that they should drop the case. Today, the leader will sack me.
He would.
So there is something also in the mentality of those who run government, thinking that those stations were created to massage their ego. No, they are public service at public convenience and at public interest. The public deserve to know the truth. So both the public, and that includes the governor and the governor. So when they don't know the truth, then they can't take the right decisions. And so in creating this critical mass, the mass media has a major fundamental role to play. It is an agenda that they must consider as primary to their public interest function. If we are going to get the visionary leadership to be able to win elections, then they must assist in preparing this 5%, in harnessing them, in networking them, making them available to these visionary leaders, so that the mass of the people can, at election time, deliver these visionary leaders. In what we call civilized countries, the people are stronger than the state, and therefore they can impose their values, their authentic cultural values on the state. But here, the society is broken. So the state is stranded. So what do?
Exactly.
Do we just give up?
No.
We must not.
We mustn't.
Because if we give up, the disaster that awaits all of us, the good, the bad, and the ugly, will be so tragic that the good will regret not taking action.
The UNCP, which you were a very prominent figure of, adopted General Abacha in those days. All the 5 political parties adopted only one candidate. Would you like to shed some light as to how that happened when all the 5 national political parties decided they were all going for one presidential candidate?
It's a very interesting story that I've never told anybody.
Oh dear.
All the parties were stampeded into adopting General Abacha. So we got to Kaduna. The night before, all the delegates from Southwest, we met in an hotel. And I told them, if I'm still your leader, leading you to this meeting, none of you will talk. You just keep quiet and look. So we got to the stadium. And of course, there were strategies too. So they insisted that I must do the opening prayer. But they couldn't find me.
Really?
I was in the OB van of FRCN.
You deliberately went to stay there?
So when they didn't find me, they found somebody else to do it. Until they finished the discussion, I was in that OB van.
So you tactically silenced yourself and your members, your followers from the Southwest. It was tactical on your part.
Because the alternative is that they'll be destroyed. So don't talk. Because your people will destroy you at home. Don't talk. So that these people also may not destroy you. And those of them who are there, they will recall that when we finished and were driving out, the Yorubas were at the gate of the stadium.
Really? Even in
Yes,
Kaduna?
In Kaduna. The Yorubas living there, ready to deal with the Yorubas. But having monitored what happened on air, they allowed us to pass. Sometimes, if if you find yourself in difficult position, then rely on God's wisdom. He will tell you. The collectivity of your experience.
Collectivity
and divine
of
guidance will tell you.
And divine guidance.
That be silent.
You need to apply tact.
And went out of it.
Last Osun State governorship election, you are one of the fathers of the SDP in Osun State. And when there was a tie between the APC and the PDP, and a rerun was called, it became obvious that in the zone where the rerun will be decided was controlled by the SDP. And at that time, a number of meetings were held, and at the end of the day, the SDP candidate, Chief Omishore, they pitched his tent with the APC. Can you give us an insight as to what really happened? Because there are lots of speculations all over the place.
I like this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
To explain it, because I led the SDP.
Oh, really?
And anybody who monitored our campaign will know that the APC was the real focus of our campaign.
How do you mean, sir?
They were the main target of our attacks.
Okay. Because they were the incumbents anyway.
They were the incumbents.
Okay.
So we finished the election, and there was going to be a room where we were critical. And I said to the leadership of the SDP, including the candidate, that we had to listen to both sides. It's not a question of I like you. It's a question of what vision you have. So you have to persuade us.
Both groups.
Yeah. So the PDP came, Senator Bukola Saraki
led the PDP team.
And we met them. Of course, we're all in PDP together, so we're quite familiar with him. And he tried to backslap. I said, no, this is no backslapping, this is serious business. We have 7 conditions written that any of the two sides that we will support must agree to. 1, salaries must be paid as well due, pensions must be paid, the educational system subsisting them must be reformed, returned to the status quo ante.
Wow.
We also said, we observed that you are carrying our wealth to Lagos. So contrast must be given to indigenes, unless when they have no capacity to perform. We found that the others were not performing. So we said the Council of Oba must be resuscitated and revived. And finally, we had a few roads in our own manifesto that we wanted those. That was it. So we gave it. Saraki looked at it, he said, this should not be difficult, but I'll get back to you. Unless he'll get back tomorrow.
He said he'll get back to you, but he never did.
Yeah. Then Elijah Atiku Abubakar came to Osun, so he called me, because he's my friend. He's Missionary's friend. He said, where are you people? I said, we are Tife. He said, wait for me, I'm coming. I'll get there before 3. I said, okay. When it was 7 o'clock, OGG, Daniel, who was his Director General
of his campaign organization.
He said they are already in Abuja. I said, what happened? He said, the PDP candidate said he didn't need SDP.
Okay.
I said, fine. So I left. The next day, Kayode Fayemi was the governor, who is still the governor of Ekiti, came. So he saw me set up school, and then this had nothing to do with school tie.
You two wanted to back.
This is serious business. This is what we gave the PDP, gave him a copy. He looked at it, he said, this is doable. Go and come back. I can't take your word. You have to go and come back. So we waited. When he came by, he came with 4 other governors.
To Ife.
And said, this is acceptable to us. We've agreed to it. I said, So you still don't believe? I said, I believe. Yeah, you sign it. Then that night, Oshomole was the national chairman. He flew into Ibadan in the night. I said, could we meet? Because he wants to confirm that the terms are acceptable to them. And he said, haven't you spent money? Shouldn't we repay you? I said, we are not poor people. So we're not asking for money. We're only asking for those things. And President Buhari was then in New York for United Nations General Assembly. He called twice to confirm that those terms were acceptable. So we had no choice. One side said they didn't need us. The other side agreed to our term.
Coming up.
Now the governorship election comes up in a few months. Does that mean the SDP is going to support Oyetola for second term? So it's not as if you were given money.
No.
Because what people say in the street is that 3 billion naira was given to the governorship aspirants.
They asked us, how much did we spend? And I told them we are not poor people.
But would you know if money was paid behind you to some of your members?
Categorically, no.
Okay.
And even Oshomole had to address a press conference on this, that we didn't ask for money, nor did we receive. Because we know the danger of receiving money.
Okay.
If we are taking money, they might refuse to implement those things.
Because it's been paid anyway.
Yeah. And those were the things we used to campaign against them. So, and they've done it.
Now the governorship election comes up in a few months. If, as you have said now, Governor Oyetola has been living up to the billings of your campaign to some large extent, I mean not absolutely, but to a very major extent, does that mean the SDP is going to support Oyetola for second term?
I cannot say yet. When we come to that bridge, we'll see that again.
Okay.
We still have some elements in our own roadmap for the development of Osun State.
Certainly. Now we live in the present presidential election, because Nigeria's president, I don't know if the power of Nigeria's president is overrated or not, but we know he's a powerful entity, that office. And so we cannot take lightly who assumes that position. Aside the APC and the PDP, there hasn't been many people who have shown interest in that office. But I want you to take a look at the dramatis personnel, I mean those active participants and the electorate. Are we ready for this kind of transformation and change that we all clamor that we want to see birth in 2023? Are we ready as a nation? Are we serious? The electorate now and the major players on the other side.
All of us.
All of us.
Collectively. We are not ready. We are not serious because we don't even know what we are talking about.
How do you mean?
Oh, we want a better 2023. Have we defined it? What is better 2023? What does it mean in terms of education? What does it mean in terms of agriculture, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of foreign policy, and so on? Have we defined it? So we just Nigerians, we love slogans. And that's why we get deceived. I will deal with corruption. I will change the economy.
Sloganeering.
I will deal with security. And we're happy. And we elected.
We sing and dance.
Did we ask, how will you do security? What will you do in 3 months? What should you expect in 9 months? What should we expect in 1 year?
How will you dislodge the establishment? Because the establishment is not going to sit back idle watching you transform the society from which they've been benefiting for so long. So we should be asking such questions. How are you going to dislodge the establishment?
Exactly. Are you going to... I will believe that anybody who wants to change Nigeria must be ready to create a new establishment. Because the dialectic theory says when there is a position, we call it thesis, an antithesis will develop. At a certain time, there will be a conflagration of both. They generate a new synthesis.
Yeah.
It's that synthesis that we need. That synthesis that will synthesize the best in all Nigerians together to create a better society, to guarantee light for all, to guarantee education, to guarantee that a student that go to a university will finish in 4 years and not spend 10 years and things like that.
And we've not, your assessment is that we've not even started.
We've not started.
Because we have not even defined.
And there is no body parading the street now that is talking about that.
Still touching on the presidency, is it all just about the presidency? Why are we always so concerned about who occupies the position of the presidency when we should also be concerned about who directs the affairs of the judiciary, for instance? Because democracy is primarily about the rule of law.
You don't elect the judicial officers here. The president nominates them for the approval of the Senate. In a country where the National Assembly legislature is not a counterbalance on the executive, where the legislature sees the executive as Kabiesi, where they just rubber-stamp what he does, so we must be interested in what that person does.
What that person does.
The president is the Kabiesi over executive. Is the Kabiesi over legislature. Is the appointer and Kabiesi over judiciary. That's why everybody bothers about it. So if we are able to wield the power, if we are able to create a strong 36 federating unit or 6 regions as some people are proposing, and we are able to reduce the power of the center back to the 22 function that they used to have in the 1963 Constitution, then nobody will bother about who is president. And in the circumstance that we have now, if we have an ineffective man in Abuja, then for 4 or 8 years we're in trouble. But if you have 7 centers, at least all of them can be effective. It's not that all the premiers were effective in the First Republic, but some were effective, some was competing with some was struggling. So the healthy competition collectively moved Nigeria forward. Everybody is comatose. The media is comatose.
What's the way out?
The academia, comatose.
The labor unions,
comatose. The student unions struggling to get their own share, comatose. So?
Even, you've talked about professional bodies, you've talked about civil society organizations who are comatose, as it were.
Oh, they are comatose.
A long time ago.
Some of the civil organization societies are already awake. Some didn't sleep, but because they were overwhelmed by the majority, so they kept quiet. Now they are beginning to find their voices. And when they begin to find their voices to begin to ask questions, then others will get emboldened. Then they begin to ask. When they begin to ask questions, you're going to find that very soon a larger number will begin to ask. In fact, some of the media houses that are sleeping will wake up. The media today is giving the society what it wants, not what it needs.
The media is giving the society what it wants, not what it needs.
And a society will only develop on the basis of its needs, because sometimes what you want is irrelevant. There are things that we have to do. The media itself must wake up, must rediscover its noble role. The media must remember that there was no war of independence in Nigeria except those fought by the newspapers, the editors, the editorial columns, the columnists, the various columns. Those were the only wars we fought before we got independence. They must also recall that the 28 years of military will not have ended if the media at that time had been like today's media. If they didn't go into trenches, all the various magazines, if they didn't go into trenches, at the risk of their life, there will have been no civilianization of governance in Nigeria.
Ambassador Farumbi, it's been a very, very illuminating, revealing session having this conversation with you. We still need to get back to your doorstep, because all of these snippets of information are history being written, and like you said earlier on the program, if you do not document your history, then there's no way the coming generations can take it further from where you left it. Depreciation is what is going to happen. We'd like to thank you very much for accepting
thank you so
our
much.
invitation to
On
be on
this
the program.
leading program, on this Boom Television, it's only you that could have successfully kept me
Thank you so much, sir.
talking for this long.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. And on that very positive and inspiring note, we'd like to appreciate our viewers for spending part of your time with us on the program today. Until we'll come your way, same station, same time, next time. Bye for now.